Good afternoon, everybody. Happy New Year, and welcome to our very first webinar of the year, a talk on how to prepare for the vaccine, presented in partnership with LifeScience. I know it's been a challenging 10 months for all of us, and the vaccine brings us all hope in the fight against COVID-19. However, it's not the time to let down our guard, and we may not be vaccinated according to authorities until the second or third quarter of this year, or maybe even later. So it's important to remain healthy and COVID-free. So Dr. Ronnah Ong, a functional medicine doctor with the LifeScience Wellness Center, will tell us more. But before that, I'd like to turn you over to Luis Samonte, brand manager of LifeScience. Thank you, Luis.
Hi everyone. Hi Bambina. Thank you for inviting us, and we would like to thank the Manila House team for setting up this webinar. But before we start, here are a few housekeeping reminders for our webinar. We are currently on speaker view, but if you prefer to view one speaker throughout the webinar, you have the option to pin the video of the current speaker. And for those who are using their mobile phones while on Zoom, select the three dots to find the Q&A chat and speaker view controls. And everyone is on mute, but you can still get some interaction through the chat options. So after the slides of Dr. Ronna, we really encourage everyone to unmute themselves and ask the questions directly, or you can put in your questions through in the Q&A chat box. So again, Dr. Ronna is here. She's a graduate from the Ateneo School of Medicine and has gone through rigorous training done by the Institute for Functional Medicine in the US. So she is currently working on to add another certification under her belt as she gets her certification as a functional medicine practitioner and join the other 5 doctors who are currently the only ones certified in the country. So hi, Dr. Ronna. How
Hi,
are
Luis.
you?
Hi, everyone. I'm great. Thank you, Manila House, for having us here today. And let me just pull out my slides so we can get started. All right. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for sharing your time here today so that we could talk about how we can prepare for the vaccine that's coming. So here, before I go down and talk about our immune system, these are some updates on the latest numbers we have on COVID. And as you see, currently there are around 42 million vaccine doses that have been administered in over 51 countries. And right now we know that the Philippines is still in line to receive the vaccine. And although for the longest time, this is what we've been waiting for, the questions that come are, will this finally be the end of the pandemic, right? Or is this the answer that we've long been waiting for? Uh, and today we're just going to dive in deeper and see and clarify and find out the different ways that we can actually prepare our bodies for the vaccine. You see, you can think of this whole all of the things that we've been doing to prevent infection as us having a strategy, right? So putting on our face mask, putting on face shields, and even now this vaccine are different. You can think of them as different layers of defense. And specifically, as we zoom into this vaccine, we can think of it as a strategy, a certain strategy that our football team or our immune system has. What does it do? So this vaccine is an mRNA vaccine. So it kind of, what it does is we're exposed to a certain viral protein that our immune cells will learn to recognize so that we can mount immune proteins, like specifically antibodies, in order to defend us from the virus. So that if ever we are exposed to the virus, we already have bullets made for them. So that's the strategy that we have in place. But this strategy, of course, if you think of the game football, even though you have an excellent strategy, the players are also as important. So these players, if you could think of your immune system as a football team with an excellent strategy and your coach being your brain, you could think of each player as each member or each white blood cell or each immune cell that's involved. When we zoom into these our immune system, you can see that we have different types of immune cells, right? So we have different types of immune defenses as well. All of these cells come from one progenitor cell. And as you can see, at the bottom of the at and on the left side, you have the cells that are that participate in the first line of defense. So, for example, if you have a wound, these are the first cells that would rush to your wound and facilitate defense from germs that could enter your body, and these will also start the healing process. Now we have these members or these cells are part of the innate immune system. On the right side, we have special cells. You could think of them as you know, the more skilled players. These are the members of the adaptive immune system. Now, these cells on the right, the T cells and the B cells, are the ones who create the antibodies. And today, what we're going to talk about are the different ways that you can strengthen each player, or you can strengthen the different immune cells we have in our bodies. When a person receives a vaccine, the immune responses may vary. So you can have people that create a robust immune system and are able to create a lot of antibodies against the virus, while there are people who can only create a few antibodies. And so these differences, where do they come from? And that's what we're going to talk about today. All right. So when you think about the immune system is really more of, it's some kind of interface between our internals, our interior, which is the body, and the exterior world. It's our immunity that sends signals to various cells and tissues within our body to respond to external stimuli. Now, when we say that it goes in two directions, that means that there are some cases wherein the immune system becomes overreactive in a chronic state, and that's what typically results in inflammatory disease. What are examples of inflammatory disease or chronic inflammation? Those are things like heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, and other autoimmune conditions. On the other side, can be an immune system that's dormant. So when we say it's dormant, it means that it's shy and it's suppressed. And typically, this would present as repeated infections and with immunosuppression. All right, so what do we really aim for? Since we know that the immune system can go in two different directions, the body, as much as possible, tries to maintain homeostasis or balance. So that whenever the body encounters external stimuli, the immune system's response is appropriate, and it's able to neutralize whatever is there without causing any damage to the body. Now, that is what we mean by having resilience in the immune system. Knowing how the immune system functions, we can see how it upholds health, or it supports health, right? So it's this balance or homeostasis that's able to sustain one person and move that person in the trajectory towards wellness. Okay, so right now we're going to talk about the different modifiable lifestyle factors that have an effect on our immune system. Now, when you go back to the illness and wellness continuum, you can try to think of where you are right now in this continuum. So it's not like we become sick overnight, right? Especially in the case of chronic disease, there are times that we feel well, there are times that we feel very ill. And so you could think of health as being like that, a spectrum. And the things that really define, or the things that have the biggest impact on where we are in that continuum is our environment. And the 5 lifestyle factors that we will be talking about mainly are sleep, exercise, nutrition, stress, and relationships. All of these 5 things actually have such a huge impact on how our immune system is able to maintain homeostasis and also mount a good and healthy immune response. Okay. So first of all, I'll talk about sleep. Now, when we talk about sleep, we already know that it supports the immune system, right? But how exactly does it do it? Now, these studies have been recently made, and we can see that um, viruses or infections affect sleep, and sleep also affects the body's immune response to certain viruses. Now, there have been a lot of studies on sleep deprivation or the chronic lack of sleep, and this is just an example of how it has an effect on the neuroendocrine and immune system network. So that when you are exposed to a virus, you actually have changes in the hormones in your body that will change the quality and the quality of your sleep. So that these so that how you sleep um, supports your body's defense system. At the same time, when we're able to have good quality sleep or on a regular basis, then we're able to also promote homeostasis in the immune system by the modulation of these immune signals that are sent throughout the body to support the white blood cells and those other cells that I showed you earlier. So during during an infection, no, various metabolic functions are altered in order to eradicate the pathogens that we confront. Now, this also has an effect on how our bodies respond to vaccines. So when we have good sleep, then we're able to mount an even a more effective response in, like, for example, antibody production. Now, moving on to the next factor that we look into, that's nutrition and hydration. Now, we already, like, you probably attended also other wellness talks that talk about nutrition. And of course, what we always promote or what we always recommend is a whole food diet, which means less processed foods, more vegetables, like 9 to 12 servings of vegetables a day. And apart from focusing also on what we eat, it's also important to look at how we eat and when we eat. Now, these are factors that are important, and you can also, if you would like, you could ask a nutritionist to really, see the breakdown or see what you've been eating to have, because we know that nutrition is ideally personalized. Um, but at the same time, we give these general recommendations about having a whole food diet and avoiding processed foods, mainly because one of the things that we want to support in the body is the gut microbiome. And having a diet that supports the gut microbiome does so much for the body. Um, First of all, there are a lot of connections between the gut and the rest of the body. You've probably heard about the gut-brain axis, which is the connection between the gut and your brain. And there's also that connection between the gut and the immune system. You've probably heard that 70% of our immune system is housed by the gut. And this picture, it looks a little uh, quite technical, but the whole point of it is just to show that there is some sort of competition occurring in your gut between pathologic bacteria and beneficial or commensal bacteria. Um, Pathologic bacteria are the bacteria that generally don't really have helpful effects on the body, while the beneficial or commensal bacteria are the bacteria that help support the different processes of the body. And how do they do that? So on the left, you'll find these different bacteria. They actually train our immune cells and support them. So they send signals to those purple cells that you see below. And when they send signals to these cells, they activate the other members of the immune system that help fight off cancer and that help fight off infections. So when you have beneficial bacteria, think of them as cheerleaders for the different immune cells that you have in your body. Now, when these beneficial bacteria are supported by a diet that's rich in whole grains, um, phytonutrients, which are the nutrients that come from the different colors of plants. They're supported also by beans, legumes, and also by avoiding sugar, processed foods, food additives, then we're able to support that healthy microbiome. Those things I mentioned, like also high animal fat, high sugar, these are the things that will feed the pathologic bacteria. And the effect of pathologic bacteria is it sort of like competes with the beneficial bacteria. So think of them as a war happening. An additional effect of having good quality bacteria in your gut is that they help fight off infection, so that when you ingest Of course, when we eat food, sometimes it can contain some pathologic bacteria, and when they enter our gut, these beneficial bacteria help fight them off by competing with them in terms of nutrients. So they eat the food that these pathologic bacteria should be eating. So they have all of these protective effects for the body, and that's what good nutrition does for you and for your immune system. Now we move on to the next lifestyle factor. So we've talked about sleep, we've talked about nutrition, and the third would be movement and exercise. So movement and exercise are, of course, as much as possible, what we're trying to achieve is regular exercise. So it's not about the intensity, but it's about having it consistently. Moreover, it's not just about exercise, but also about how you move your body on a regular basis and day-to-day basis, how you sit down, how you stand up, how you walk. Those are just as important as how often you exercise. Um, Now, what does exercise do for the immune?
And this looks again quite technical. Oh, sorry. Did I lose my audio or is it still there?
No, I can hear you now. I can
Yeah.
hear you.
Okay. So again, this looks like a technical slide, but the main point of this whole slide is that exercise again supports the immune system. All right. So first of all, one of the things it does is that it improves defense activity of the different immune cells, and it also supports metabolic health. So there is data, like so much data, on how moderate exercise training decreases overall illness risk. And one of the interesting things about exercise is that it also goes two ways. So, moderate exercise, having like 150 minutes of cardio training a week, um, two, uh, 2 sessions of strength training. Now, these are the general recommendations that we give. And it's important that we also don't exceed these recommendations because there are cases, but it depends on the person. But there are cases wherein over exercise actually promotes inflammatory disease. And so there have been studies wherein that find that intensified training and competition actually increases illness risk. So it's important to find that balance of of moderate exercise in order to properly support the immune system. So right now, um, what's counted as acute or good exercise is like an hour a day, or again, as I mentioned, 150 minutes a week. One of the nice things that exercise does also is that it helps promote healthy aging. So the immune cells are actually very active in supporting aging in the body, and exercise is what regulates and allows that smooth transition in aging. So again, this is just there are studies that would also look at the effects of acute exercise and vaccine response. So they found that exercise actually promotes good vaccine responses. Of course, the recommendation would be to exercise regularly, but even acute exercise or exercising right before you get your vaccine may be beneficial. So the studies are new, but they are quite interesting. No? So how does it do that? When you exercise, there's more blood that's pumped to the different parts of your body, and this increased circulation also allows better distribution of your white blood cells throughout the body, and this is what promotes the good immune response, among other ways also. All right. Now we move on to stress. And of course, you've heard about how stress affects the immune system, not just by affecting the quality of our sleep, but it does so much on the molecular level as well. So, one of the things stress does is it increases cortisol production in our body. So, you've probably heard of the hormone cortisol, right? The whole point of this slide is just to show you that cortisol has effects on the brain and effects on the gut. When we have increases of cortisol because of stress, um, our body believes that there's an emergency happening. And in response to this emergency, it becomes, first of all, metabolism changes. When our metabolism changes, the way we burn our energy is different. So um, what cortisol does is it increases blood sugar levels. So that's one negative effect that we don't want. Another effect also of cortisol is that it disrupts the gastrointestinal barrier. So remember that microbiome that we talked about. Cortisol can cause imbalances in those levels. Um, and that causes, of course, so many different effects. When we have imbalanced gut microbiome, that can lead to, again, a hampered immune response. Second would be decreased absorption of nutrients or vitamins because of imbalanced gut microflora. And third, of course, is we have uh, a compromised barrier between the food that we eat and our circulation. Apart from the changes that that cortisol brings to the gut, there also are changes in terms of GI motility. So when we talk about GI motility, that's how fast or how slow our intestines move. And I know that you felt like probably when you're stressed, you feel some discomfort in your stomach. Now that's because of the vagus nerve that connects your brain and your stomach. And so we see that your mental state or your emotional state has a direct effect, a direct and immediate effect on the motility of your gut. What are the implications of changes in gut motility? Well, how fast or how slow you digest your food affects how well you absorb your nutrients. And also, if digestion becomes too slow, that can allow recirculation of toxins in the body. So these are just things that we must be mindful of. All right. Now, moving on to our last lifestyle factor, relationships are also just as important. So we must remember that we don't exist in a vacuum, and our health is defined also and influenced by the health of the people around us, and our well-being also helps. For sure, it helps build others up as well. Uh, Now we go back to the idea of immunity, and we know that we probably learned over this pandemic that right now the virus we're battling, it's not just an individual battle. You see, we are facing this as a community, as a country, and around the world. The one way that we can really slow down transmission of this virus is to build our immune system, and eventually, what our goal is herd immunity. So herd immunity, so that which means that we want the virus to eventually die out and not have a host, so that it can stop spreading, right? So when we protect ourselves, we do so much, not just for ourselves, but for our community as well. So going back to our main point, I just discussed all of these things to demonstrate, no, that these are the basic things, like taking care of those basic things like sleep, nutrition, exercise, um, managing your stress does so much for the body. We know we talk about boosting the immune system a lot, but before we boost the immune system, think of boosting the immune system as buying new helmets, nice set of new uniforms, or um, protective gear for your football players. But the best way to make them work well would really be to, train them, to feed them right, diba? And that's what exercise, nutrition, good sleep does for you there. So thank you for listening to this short talk this afternoon. I believe it's time for Q&A.
Yes. Thanks, Dr. Ong. Sorry. You want to just stop the screen share?
Yes. All right.
Yeah, there's a question from Miss RC Catalan. How does alcohol affect our microbiome and immune system?
Oh, this is a good question. Thank you, Miss RC, for the question. Now, alcohol is it depends on the source of the alcohol, right? But typically, when we talk about wine, then we have these uh, different parts of the drink that are beneficial. So, for example, there's malt. Their wine contains polyphenols, and these are things that are actually beneficial for the gut. However, um, alcohol in itself can what it does is it can cause leaky gut, which is the impaired barrier of it can irritate the gut cells, and this causes uh, the imbalance in the gut microbiome. So although some alcoholic drinks may have some benefits like um, the the effects of alcohol in itself will still outweigh the benefits of some alcoholic drinks. So I would say that best is to avoid alcoholic drinks, especially if these good good things that you get from the drink, like again polyphenols from wine, can be taken from other foods as well.
There is another question actually.
Mhm.
Um, there are news reports that some people died from the vaccine. And
Mhm.
is this confirmed? And what were the causes?
And
Okay,
we were talking
so I
about
know
this
that
earlier.
Yeah.
there are a lot of news reports on them. Well, the one that I have looked into the most would be the reports of the cases in Norway. So we know the Pfizer vaccine that was administered among the elderly population, um, and what they released was that first of all, since it's the elderly population, most of these people have had chronic diseases already. And so they cannot really distinguish if it was the virus or if it was the vaccine or complications of their diseases. Now, the vaccine, there can be a connection between that, but they did not make any conclusions yet. And it's something they're still looking into. However, what they did was they lowered the age that age window because they at first they were administering it to the elderly, I think up to 90 years old. Those up to 90 years old were given the vaccine, but because of these complications they lowered that to 85 years old. um, there. So for now, that's what we can say. There are adverse reactions, but they have been limited. And although 29 seems like a big number, there, it, we still lack information before concluding that it really was the vaccine.
And again, we wanted to highlight lang that these people already parang or were diagnosed with chronic diseases, which actually brings us back to the point of Dr. Rona na we really have to make sure that our immune system is strong, with or without the vaccine, so that we can prevent ourselves from actually getting chronic diseases and more complicated, complex chronic diseases in the future. There's another question, which is, um, Doctora, have you done any research on the long haul symptoms of COVID?
Okay. Uh, well, I haven't done a lot of in-depth research on it. Uh, However, I have read some of their effects, like especially among those who only had mild cases of COVID but had residual effects such as fatigue and they're generally fatigued, and symptoms like headache or low energy. Now, what I can say about this is that this can be typical of other viral infections. Because COVID is a viral infection, there actually are other viral infections that will act the same way. So, for example, there are viruses like CMV, cytomegalovirus, or Epstein-Barr virus. These are viruses that can hide in the neurons, um, or in the nervous system and have a dormant phase, which means that they're asleep there. I'm not saying that COVID has that effect, but viruses can have that sort of behavior. Now, when it since this is a new virus and there's new information that we're getting on it by the day. Again, the focus would be going back to uh, helping the immune system fight it off, because really that's the foundation of your your defense. Even though you get medications and we try to kill off the virus, it's really your immune cells, your white blood cells, your antibodies that come face to face with it. And whether or not you have it yet, it's best to focus on supporting that immune system.
There is
Um,
another.
oh,
ah,
sorry, go ahead, please.
sorry.
No, I was
There's
just going to ask quickly about any supplements that you can take to bolster your immunity, because we've heard about vitamin D and zinc, maybe.
Yes. So vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc are are the supplements that have been studied to help support the immune system. Now, vitamin D, first of all, many people actually have insufficient amounts of vitamin D. Around 70% of urban dwellers in the Philippines have below normal or below ideal levels of vitamin D. And so, what we want to aim for, what we practice is having the vitamin D tested first. So, you actually can have serum vitamin D taken in a local laboratory. The normal values are usually 30 to 50 nanograms per ml. But what we aim for is around usually 60 to 80. That's the functional medicine range. So uh, that's what you aim for. Vitamin D supplements are, if you want to try supplementation, I would advise you to see a doctor first so that you can measure your levels of vitamin D, because there is such a thing as vitamin D toxicity. So it would be good to have it measured. Now, with zinc, zinc is beneficial because it helps support the gut cells. Around like 15 to 25 milligrams of zinc is what's recommended. And of course, zinc rich foods like shellfish well, they're the best sources of zinc as well. Um, other other things that can help support your immune system is also fish oil. So omega 3s, a diet high in omega 3s is helpful for the immune system, mainly because it helps lower chronic inflammation. Um, Life Science has a supplement also called Immuni 3. That's a combination already of vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. So if you want to take that, then you can actually check the center for that supplement. And vitamins that should be taken on a regular basis. Now, it generally the ones I mentioned for the immune system, you could take those like zinc, vitamin D, vitamin C, mainly because and it's what we need right now because of our lifestyle. So the reason why we lack a lot of vitamin D is because most people stay indoors. When you're an urban dweller, like, you don't go outside. When we've been quarantined and lockdown, we don't go outside. We don't get the sun, and that's why we don't have vitamin D. So it depends on the lifestyle. If you want something personalized, regimen that really suits you, then it would be best to see a doctor so that you can find out what nutrients you may be lacking. But again, going back to answer the question, those supplements are helpful to take on a daily basis, plus a multivitamin, if you don't have one yet.
If I may just add, just to let everyone know, Life Science is actually moving tomorrow next door to Manila House at Bonifacio High, one Bonifacio High Street. Am I right? Yeah.
Yeah, I can put the main address here in the chat so that everyone can take a look.
Yeah, so starting from tomorrow is our soft opening, so it's very convenient for Manila House members. If you'd like to go and have either consultation or have a look at their in-house pharmacy as well with all their supplements and fresh food as well, no? Fresh produce, because Life Science can also create a meal plan for you, right, to attain optimum
Um,
health.
yeah, we
Clean
have
nutrition.
nutritionists, dietitians in house so that they can actually personalize your diet plan. So, we've always believed that there's no such thing as a one diet fits all kind of thing. So, if you think of getting into keto, you have to really check first with a nutritionist, dietitian, or doctor to really guide you on what produce you have to buy first if it's really beneficial for you, because there are a lot of things that you might not be able to consider, like, or you might be intolerant to rice, or you might be intolerant to other things that you might think or you might take in your diet. So that's really important for us. And yeah, let me chat it here. But um, we just want to also let everyone know that this is a temporary clinic only. We'll be opening a bigger clinic in Podium so that so that it'll be easier for everyone else. Since we have a lot of clients also from different parts of Metro Manila. So we want to be in the center, so we're opening that real soon then. But yeah, we're going to be in High Street South Corporate Plaza starting tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the soft opening. I'll also put in here the website. Yeah. So Doc Me, and there's another question. How do we get quality sleep, and what is the circadian rhythm?
All right. So thank you for that question. Um, Now, how do we get quality sleep? Sleep, when we go to sleep, there are a lot of different brain hormones or neurotransmitters that are actually involved in sleep. So you've probably heard about melatonin or um, or adenosine and adenosine receptors. Now these are things, different things, no, that will influence how and when you sleep. Now, good quality sleep is best achieved, I would say, by balancing your day. So, first of all, how we spend our day will impact how we sleep at night. So, if you've noticed, I'm not sure if you noticed this, but a lot we've been getting uh, more cases of insomnia over quarantine. We called it corona somnia because more people have been having insomnia. And when we looked into it, it's possible that insomnia cases were rising because we haven't been able to resume our activities like before. So we used to be active, we used to go out and expend a lot of energy. And that's why when you go back to bed at night, then, we were able to sleep well. Now, with having decreased activity, decreased exposure to the sun and to light, that's what can mess up the circadian rhythm. Now, so this circadian rhythm that you're asking about, now this is the balance, or this is the crosstalk that happens between the hormones that regulate sleep. Ideally, exposure to light is what can trigger the certain production of a hormone called melatonin, and that is what tells your brain now, okay, it's time to sleep, it's time to wake up. So that's basically the circadian rhythm. So every time we travel, right, we adjust to the to the time zone, and that's what the circadian rhythm does for us. It's like it senses the time, and that helps regulate our sleep. So some tips on having good quality sleep will be minimizing exposure to blue light. As early like when the sun sets, you can change the light in your gadgets, turn off blue light so that your eyes are less exposed to light and it picks up that it's evening already. Also, getting sunlight, at least 20 minutes of sunlight throughout the day will be helpful in informing your body that it's daytime. Moving also a lot in the morning can help uh, uh, give you better quality sleep. Another thing to do is minimize caffeine intake past 2 p.m. So the residual effects of caffeine is what can block the receptors of hormones that are supposed to tell your brain that it's time to sleep. So with the presence of caffeine, your brain is, still alive and awake.
There's another question. Can probiotics help strengthen the immune system? And how do we know if it's quality probiotics and not?
Oh, I like this question. So, this is an excellent question because we were talking about the gut microbiome earlier. Now, probiotics are helpful in the sense that they allow the introduction of good bacteria or those beneficial bacteria I was discussing earlier. So it's like adding more cheerleaders to your gut. But probiotics, since they are not natural, or they're not the ones that your body allowed to grow spontaneously, these the effects of probiotics don't really last. So what does that mean? They don't really provide lasting changes in the gut microbiome. So when you take a probiotic, the bacteria helps out, like it produces the fatty acids that will help support your gut lining. It talks to your immune system and helps support the immune system, but it doesn't totally change the balance of the gut microbiome. It doesn't produce lasting changes, and that just shows that it's really a whole food diet that's able to do that. So probiotics help bridge you, so they can provide some benefits, but they do not equal um, really having a balanced gut microbiome that's supported by the food you eat.
So, Doc,
There
like
is such a
the
thing, sorry, just
no,
about this
it's
probiotic.
okay.
Isn't there such a thing now as prebiotic as well? How do they all work with the gut and the microbiome for gut health
Yes.
and in turn for general health?
Yes. Okay. So thank you for that. When we say probiotics, pala, so there are probiotic supplements, and these are the ones you were talking about earlier. There also are probiotics in foods. So probiotic foods are better than probiotic supplements because, um, again, these have more lasting changes. So they actually studied people from Bulgaria, no, sorry, people from Belgium. So people from Belgium love their yogurt, and they noticed that people age, they have a healthier older population in that country, and they looked at the effect of their diet that's high in fermented foods, and they saw that it does help their immune system be stronger. So that diet is consists of probiotic foods, which are fermented foods. And also, there are prebiotic foods that you can integrate in your diet. Prebiotics can come in supplements and in foods as well. When they're in a supplement form, think of them as like food for the probiotics. Or no, not food for the probiotics, but food for good bacteria. So it's like you're feeding the good guys and allowing them to grow. That's what the prebiotic does. In food, prebiotics would be fiber. So, for example, when you eat the apple and you eat the skin of the apple, that's the prebiotic part. Um, Fiber-rich fruit. That's why we would encourage, although juicing is good, having, eating a fruit as a whole is also beneficial because you get to have the fiber from that. And that's also why we encourage you to eat 9 to 12 servings of vegetables in a day, because having at least like 20 grams of fiber is what helps prevent chronic disease and support the gut microbiome.
Doc, let's talk about naman yung stress. So, you said yun nga, that cortisol levels increase, or we have to really manage our cortisol levels throughout the day. So, how does meditation really help with that? We see everyone doing meditation now, but what's really the science behind it?
Okay, the science behind meditation, there's so much science behind it. Well, first of all, what is meditation? Meditation is, taking its most basic definition of it would be just focusing on one thing, focusing your attention and being totally present. That's what meditation is. And so, uh, first thing it does, or first benefit of meditation, is when you focus on one thing, it allows your brain to turn off, its signals, and it allows like healthy rewiring of your brain. And when you do that, that that benefit cascades to different processes in the body. Um, First effect of meditation in when it comes to stress, like a practical effect, is it lowers blood pressure and it lowers your heart rate. This is what not only meditation, but something as simple as deep breathing can give the same effect as well. Remember that I mentioned earlier, when we become stressed, suddenly, your body releases cortisol, and remember that picture of how it affects the brain and the gut. You have to keep in mind that cortisol, once it's in your circulation, has to be cleared out. And so meditation is one of the ways that we can, first of all, prevent it um, uh, from being circulated, prevent like high amounts of cortisol to be circulated. And second, it also helps prevent, the next time you're exposed to stress, you don't have that, you know, those really high amounts of cortisol right away. So it also helps you have a better stress response.
How would you recommend like action? Let's say, do you have any information about how we'll know when it's our turn to get the vaccine? Would we have to register with our municipalities or barangays, or and then
Oh,
let's say, would you know, like, would you be knowing 2 weeks before or a week before or a day before that you're scheduled to get the vaccination? And so let's say you have a day, or let's say you have a few days, a week to prepare. What's your best strategy to make sure that your body takes in the vaccine properly and
mm-hmm.
builds your immune response efficiently?
Mm. Okay. Thank you for those questions. For the first two questions as to how the vaccine will be rolled out, unfortunately, I don't know. I don't know what the government's plan on how to roll out the vaccine is as of yet. Um, because what I just know is that they're choosing to in our country, they're choosing to prioritize the frontliners. And apart from that, there's no information yet on how the DOH will distribute the vaccines. Um, Second naman, with regards to how to prepare for the vaccine, uh, that's a great question because the studies show that what we want to aim for the week before you get the vaccine is a good immune response. So how do you have that effective immune response? Uh, just remember the five things I shared earlier. Make sure that you sleep well the whole week. And again, going back to the importance of sleep, um, among all of the things I discussed, like stress, nutrition, relationships, exercise, sleep, if you were to compromise on one of them, the one thing that you shouldn't compromise on would be sleep. Because if you compromise on like eating, if you eat something that's not good for you, you won't get sick right away. Or diba, it takes a while for diet to really affect you. Second, like if you over exercise or under exercise, your body can still tolerate those effects. But if you lack sleep, if you have like one night of deprive yourself of sleep, you can get sick right away, right? You actually feel the effects immediately after, and that's the importance of sleep. If you compromise on that, that's something that you cannot just take back easily. So prioritize your sleep. Second is exercise regularly. Do it to increase the circulation of blood in your body. Do it also to strengthen the white blood cells. Think of those white blood cells as your football players. And every time you exercise, you're building their muscles. So think of it that way. Um, Third is eating during the 1 week, if you would like, cut the processed foods. Cut the sugar. Sugar is highly inflammatory. Sugar confuses your immune system. It makes it angry. So if you cut down on sugar, that will definitely help. Um, Also, eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, as we talked about earlier. There and if you can meditate during that week, that would be good also. So those are basic things. No? Exciting to think about it. No? You can actually prepare your body to receive a vaccine. But yeah, uh, the science shows that it's possible.
Any more questions, Luis?
Yeah, so you just said that we have to cut sugar. So what are the best alternatives to sugar? Since I'm pretty sure a lot of people like their desserts very much. But how can we survive a week without desserts and sugar?
Oh, okay. Alternatives to sugar. First of all, when you talk about alternatives, it's best to go natural. So things like cocoa sugar, agave, maple syrup, these are good alternatives to refined white sugars. So of course they have their hierarchy, and the natural sugar stevia. Those are the things that would top the list. Anything that's artificial. So these artificial sweeteners, I would not recommend. So artificial sweeteners, like for example aspartame, they are known to have neurotoxic effects. So that's why diet sodas can, even though they say they're low in sugar, if they use these artificial sweeteners, I would not recommend them. But uh, there's one option, go natural. So have these natural sweeteners. But one other thing to watch out for is, even though it's natural, it's still carbs or it's still sugar. So still mind the amount. Just because it's natural doesn't mean that you can add more of it or you can sweeten either. You can add more. Second tip is to add, look into the other ways that you can add flavor. So it's not only sweetness, but you could tap into herbs and spices in order to, there to add excitement to the food in the absence of sugar. Another tip also is the way you eat and what you add to your food can help curb those sugar spikes. So whenever you consume sugar, what we want to prevent is having spikes of or sudden elevations of blood sugar. And that occurs when you consume sugar without protein, without fat. So if you only consume sugar, like for example, juice, that's the most basic example. You just have juice, nothing else. That's what can cause a spike in your blood sugar, where your blood sugar will suddenly, rise and go up. Um, why don't we want that? It's not very efficient when it comes to metabolism to just suddenly have a spike in sugar. What we want is, a slow and steady supply. And that's what having a balanced meal does. So if you, instead of having like just juice, if you pair it with nut, like if you have it as a fruit instead, which has fiber, which will have other nutrients, and you pair it with nuts, which have fat and protein, then you're able to have a balanced supply of sugar in your circulation. Another hack.
Another hack. Yeah, speaking of inflammation, how does food intolerance contribute to inflammation?
Okay, so well, food intolerance is one of the three general adverse food reactions. So there's food allergies, food sensitivities, and food intolerance. Now, food sensitivities and food intolerance are two different things. When we say food sensitivity, it's the immune system that mounts a response to the food. So you can have antibodies formed against your foods. And when the antibodies meet the foods that you ingest and they bind together, that's what will send signals to the rest of your body, saying that we have an invader. And the immune system mounts inflammation, which can manifest in different ways, around the whole body and not just in the gut. When we have a food intolerance, that's when you don't have enzymes or the things that are needed to properly break down food in the digestive system there. So when you don't properly break down food, that can cause indigestion, that can also cause symptoms like bloating or abdominal discomfort. It can also cause a range of symptoms, but they're more concentrated in the gut. But basically, these reactions to food are able to cause inflammation. And although inflammation is good sometimes, if you have symptoms like especially the joint pain, fatigue, headaches, then it's possible that they are mediated by the foods that we eat.
Are you always able to reset though? Like if you do a binge, like if you're trying to do healthy eating throughout the week and then you binge on the weekends, and of course you'll see the spike, right? I mean, if you really go overboard, is the body always capable of resetting?
Oh,
Is
that's
there like would there all can you do it as much as you can, or is there at some point your body's gonna give up and say, you know, you're doing this too much, and maybe certain glands or part of your endocrine system or something don't respond anymore? Is that is that a
yeah.
possibility?
Well, that's a good question. It depends on a lot of things, and one important thing that we notice would be age also. Uh, so first of all, of course, how frequent you do it. So if it's something you do one time, then your body can recuperate. But if you do it on a regular basis, think of it as toxins or uh, load on the body that piles up. So every time you do it again, it's another thing that the body needs to deal with, and your load becomes heavier and heavier. And instead of moving, remember that illness and wellness continuum, it sort of like drags you to the disease side slowly but surely. So the effects, I would say, having habits that disturb the balance of your body, like your body will always try. Our bodies always tries to promote homeostasis and balance in every system, whether that's the hormones or immune system, nervous system. It tries to work towards balance. But when we have those habits that pull it towards disease, then inevitably it will slowly go there.
So don't abuse your body, in other words, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I guess, do we have time for one more question,
Yeah.
Louise? Yeah, do you have any other questions? Have you received any other questions?
None so far.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thanks so much, Dr. Rona. That was really informative. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Before we close, I just want to say that, let everyone know that Manila House is open again. We had to close over the weekend for some renovation work, but it's all done. And I'm inviting all the members to come have a look again at the club to enjoy the outdoors on our deck and our new menus and specials. And tomorrow we have a talk with Solita Monsod about the economic outlook for the Philippines in 2021, which I think we're all looking forward to. It's been, as I said, it's been a tough year with a lot of challenges. And so please join us tomorrow for that talk. And for now, I'd like to thank Life Science for partnering with us today, and Dr. Rona for all the insights that you shared with us. And on behalf of Manila House, I'm Bambina Olivares, the Director of Programming, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Dr. Rona, maybe your last words to sum it all up in preparation for the vaccine.
Yes, thank you for the time that you spent, and I hope that these things were helpful to you. Again, I hope it goes back to the basics. That's just my message. It goes back to supplements help boosting the immune system. These IV drips, they're helpful, but going back and taking care of exercise, sleep, our nutrition, managing our stress. There's no replacement for that. So I hope that that's what we focus on as we prepare for the vaccine. So thank you again.
Thanks, everyone. A recording will be up in a couple of days on our YouTube channel. So if you want to look back at the talk, please visit our YouTube channel, the Manila House Private Club YouTube channel, and you'll find all our today's talk and as well as previous other talks that we've had for you to refer to. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you, Dr. Ong, and thank you, Luis of Lifestyle of Life Science. It's lifescience.ph if you'd like to pay them a visit. And we hope to see you again tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining, and goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.